Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt TV. I'm Manu Feti, Stefan Bienkowski, and today's big topic is the Premier League market value update. And one club in particular has done really well in this update, and that's Arsenal, which, considering the season that they had under Mikel Arteta, shouldn't be the biggest surprise, Stefan. Let's go through some of these numbers. Some of the players that have done quite well is Martin Odegaard is going from 80 to 90, Bukayo Saka from 110 to 120 million euros. Another player that stands out to me is Martinelli, of course. He's going to 80 million. I mean, you look throughout that entire squad, Arsenal can be really pleased about the season that they had, and they can be very pleased about this market value update.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy to say Manchester City, this all-conquering team, deserve to be top of, the market value update. Erling Haaland's obviously the most valuable player in England, joint most valuable player in the world, who we'll talk about in another video this week. But, I think it's also fair that Arsenal have kind of gone up a rung or two. People argue as to, what these market values mean, how relatable they are to real-life transfer values. But at the very least, they're usually a very good indicator of how well a player's done from season to season. And, if you kind of look over the course of Mikel Arteta's time at Arsenal since, I think he joined the club in December 2019, you can see a real kind of trend for just about every player in that squad. And one of the most kind of startling figures for me, obviously you can break it down to the individual level in the sense that someone like Bukayo Saka has gone from a young player to a world star under Mikel Arteta. Martin Odegaard's gone from being I don't want to say a Real Madrid reject, that seems very harsh, but like a Real Madrid kind of backup player who had to get his career back on track. He's now in the top 10 Premier League most valuable players. And of course, Gabriel Martinelli, who's just kind of made his name at Arsenal after the club did a successful job of scouting him. He's now in the top 10. So they've got three players in the top 10. But what's really interesting is that their overall squad value now stands at 954 million euros, which is the second highest in England. It's the third highest in Europe behind Manchester City and Bayern Munich. And I think what really stands out to me is that if you actually kind of track Arsenal's market value, their squad market value, so the total market value of all the players in the team, it's gone up really impressively from 677 million to 954 million. And we've seen them overtake the likes of Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool. And, that's not just because they finished second in the Premier League this season. It's because Arteta has taken this impressive young team full of prospects and, players that maybe didn't come up on the radar of bigger clubs, and he's turned them into these really talented young Premier League stars. And, the fact that they now have the second most viable squad in the Premier League might not be as, might not be something to celebrate in the same way as like a Premier League title or an FA Cup or whatever else, but I think it is a sign of the good work that Arteta's done at the club.
And I think it also, obviously, they're being back in the Champions League, right? I think that they gave Man City, for some time at least, a pretty good run for their money. And, I think it just shows the development curve here, right? I mean, I think I have to point out market values don't indicate whether a player is good or bad. It's just, is what we think on an open market a player could be of that caliber, not even that individual of that caliber could be worth. But it's also interesting too when you look a little bit in the future. Before we wrap this up, Stefan, you see Declan Rice and Kai Havertz being linked to this team. It looks like Arsenal are only going to get better from here.
Yeah, the really important thing that Arteta has done at his time at Arsenal is he's kind of taken older players and he's kind of gently moved them on. We've seen the likes of Mesut Ozil, Aubameyang, kind of number of kind of older central defenders, fullbacks, etc., being kind of moved on. That whole midfield's been kind of revamped as well. We've seen Granit Xhaka kind of come back into the team, maybe perhaps quite surprisingly over the last couple of seasons, but he's obviously moving on too. And this is just kind of the most kind of the natural kind of evolution of that, in the sense that there's also now Declan Rice coming in for the likes of Granit Xhaka, Kai Havertz potentially coming in to kind of be a long-term successor to someone like maybe Aubameyang or maybe even Lacazette. You could argue they still haven't really properly replaced him. I know Gabriel Jesus is there now, but yeah, it goes to show just how far they've come, that they can not only afford to buy these players, but also these players want to come, because it really is easy to forget that when Arteta took on the job, there was some serious question marks as to whether they can get into the top four, the top six, whether the kind of heyday of Arsenal kind of being a title challenger were long gone. And he's turned that around completely. So yeah, the market values are a sign of the success, and the players are now able to potentially sign. Goes to show how much good work they've done.
Exciting time for Arsenal fans. Go check out those new market values on Transfermarkt, whether it's .com, .co.uk, or .us. We have many platforms for you. Get involved too. In the future, you can actually vote on these market values too. Discuss them in our various forums, and let us know in the comments what you think about Arsenal. We'll be back soon with more content. Until then, cheers and bye-bye.